the multiple bomb threats that were called in over the weekend, it was tough to pay attention to everything that was going on, but the one that I was keeping tabs on was definitely Assassin's Creed Shadows, because I thought, guys, like, okay, that debut, it was really stinky. Okay, what was that, 46,000 it ended up peaking out on after the early release period over on Steam. It's like, okay, well, I could see, right? Like that's the hardcore of the hardcore, where you're going to go over to you're going to go over to another platform where you can't just, sign up for $17, $18, $20 a month in order to get access to it. No. You're going to plunk down the, $100, $130 to get the deluxe or the gold edition, whatever Ubisoft calls it. I think it's gold edition, regardless. Okay, that's the only time this game's going to hit gold. But I digress. That's the hardest of the hardcore. Okay, so when people, get their codes and when they get their access to the game, I would think that, okay, yeah, that 40, I think we're probably going to hit like a multiplier, and that would make a lot of sense, right? Because you got the very small subsection of hardcore gamers that are over there wanting to play Shadows at a premium early, a couple days early. Like, that's over the launch weekend. Like, you got to be doing what, 2-3 times that? I was thinking, okay, like I was saying, I wouldn't be surprised if if Shadows ends up doing 80, 90, hell, even low 6 digits on release. Like, I thought that was very possible, but holy Christ, was I shocked. Like, I was legitimately shocked, and we'll get into those numbers, but hey, when you take a look at Dexerto here, if you weren't paying attention to things, you could have been hoodwinked, because Assassin's Creed Shadows sets a huge franchise record with growing player count. Oh my god. So hey, it managed to beat the rap. Okay, the normies that are out there are still buying this up. Like, okay, all right. Assassin's Creed Shadows is now officially the biggest Steam release in franchise history, as the player count continues to soar past all previous entries. And despite the many controversies ahead of release, AC Shadows has quickly become one of the biggest titles in franchise history. Ooh, I see some weasel words that are in here, but okay. It's swiftly reached over 2 million players across all platforms, okay, surpassing the launch period of both AC Origins and Odyssey. Oh, that's interesting, because what did we hear within the first couple of hours? Oh, over 1 million players. Well, what exactly does that mean? Bunch of players. Okay, cool. Did they buy the game, or are they getting early access? There are 1 million players. And then over your launch weekend, you had 2 million players. Ooh. Okay. That's not all, though. Among the active player base, many are checking the new release out on PC, and in particular through Steam. In fact, more than ever are playing this way, as Shadows has now raised the bar for the franchise on Valve's digital storefront. Yes, the biggest storefront on PC. The place that has, like a plurality? Maybe it is just an outright majority of online sales. I'm pretty sure. No, it's at least the biggest. It might just be bigger than everything else that's out there. I'm not entirely sure. It's been a minute since I've looked, but leaping and mantling ahead of all previous entries in the popular series, the game's focused on feudal Japan and has now reached a higher concurrent player count than everything that came before it. Wow, there's not exactly a lot of empirical data, but hey, they're telling you that it's more popular than other games that also didn't have a simultaneous release on Steam. As of March 23rd, right? 2025, exactly. 64,825 players were stepping into the shoes of Yasuke and Naoe at the same time. Oh shit! Wait a minute. 64,825 players, and as I record right now, we can go ahead and update that. I'd imagine now under 30. That is ass. Wow, that is like really bad, because we've tracked similar AAA games, and the only one that has performed worse is probably Avowed. Avowed and Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, even though it didn't really track that closely. But hey guys, it's coming to PS5, mid-April. Yay, that'll sell like 6 of copies. What an ass game that is. That's one of those games that just got astroturfed because nobody was really on it, and it took you a minute in order to get the girl boss into your party before it became really insufferable. Other than that, it was just kind of a dull movie game before that. But hey, Troy Baker can do really unenthusiastic Indiana Jones. Like, he can do that pretty well. But let's keep it a buck, and let's make the proper comparisons on this one. Assassin's Creed Shadows is a worse performing game in full release than everybody's favorite franchise-killing entry, Dragon Age: The Veilguard. This is really bad. This is really, really bad. And when you take a look at people just paying attention to the game, because I talked about this before, right? Like, I was watching gameplay because I wanted to at least get some of my references correct, right? Like, I didn't want to just say, oh, game bad because I heard bad. I wanted to watch gameplay. So I watched Az heel versus Babyface play on his first day, or on the first day of release, and yeah, wildly unimpressed. Very glitchy. The voice acting was AIDS. The dialogue was pathetic, and the combat really hasn't evolved that much since Assassin's Creed 2. Not to mention the bugs and the own little personal bugaboos where you could just say, oh, the game looks, like really boring or whatever like that. Whatever the little disclaimers you want to throw in over the top of it is, that's totally fine. I'm just talking about objective metrics, and yeah, Shadows is just, it's just bad. It's just bad by all of those measurements, and well, it ends up getting beat out by the meme game that it inspired. I mean, that's on Twitch, and that's one thing, but in going back and talking about, watching to just experience some of the gameplay, I didn't come back for day 2, and I don't think Az did a day 3, so it's absolutely crazy how bad this game really is. So yeah, now it's time to measure it, weigh it, and find how lacking it really is. Assassin's Creed Shadows' peak Steam player count is 27.5% lower than Dragon Age: The Veilguard, and this is the appropriate comparisons to make, because both Shadows and Veilguard went through a similar production cycle, had a similar amount of delays, was also offered, and arguably, Dragon Age probably was on a bigger proprietary publisher's client in whatever EA calls their service. I'm not even sure what Ubisoft calls their service, but they also have, their monthly subscription. And yeah, the Veilguard was over there for people who wanted to check the game out. They could have gave EA $20, and we know how well that ultimately worked out for them. And the same thing happened with, Star Wars Outlaws about 6 months ago. Now the same thing is happening with Shadows, but hey guys, it's a big success. Trust us though. Got more on that tomorrow, because as much as we're going to be talking about the media's reaction and how negative it is for Snow White tomorrow, I'm also going to do the same thing with Assassin's Creed Shadows, but the spin this time around, it's interesting, right? Because if you want to compare and contrast the two industries, you got mainstream Hollywood access media types, and then you've just got shill games journalists, at least one is trying to maintain at least a little bit of perceptible believability and credibility. And then you got games journalists who are just too busy sticking crayons and rainbow badges up their nose to even be remotely taken seriously. It's super pathetic, man. But let's take a look. Assassin's Creed Veilguard, I'm sorry, that was legitimately a slip, but very appropriate, because I remember being a big fan of Assassin's Creed back in the day. I've talked about it before and need not tread that well-worn ground, but in wanting to pick up a game like that, never once did it cross my mind that, yeah, cool, I want to play as the main protagonist, but who are they going to bone in the game? It's all video game relationships, they're all cringe, but this time around, both of the main protagonists have 4 different relationships that they can get into. That's what you're focused on. Those are your big set pieces in games. It's ugh. As much as I love the original Mass Effect trilogy, it was always the eye-rolling part right before the final mission where you just hook up with your teammate that you had the best relationship with. And even still, that was somewhat tasteful and it was over relatively quickly, but just those drawn-out, non-binary gay kisses that Yasuke can do, and the aggressive lesbian scissoring that just rolls around for far too long, what the hell is going on here? What's wrong with, well, we kind of know exactly what's wrong with modern developers, because we can take a look at who's making these games and who's writing these games, and we know that they don't have gameplay in mind, that they just have their own shitty little fanfics that they want to push. But I digress. But yes, Shadow's peak Steam player count is 27.5% lower than the Veilguard. Back at the beginning of November, Veilguard hit a peak player count of 89,418 players in its opening release weekend. Shadows, meanwhile, hit a peak player count of, 64,825 people in its first weekend, 27.5% lower than the Veilguard. That is atrocious. Electronic Arts would admit that Dragon Age of Veilguard's failure, was a failure and missed sales expectation by nearly 50%. And yeah, when Andrew Wilson came out and said that Veilguard only engaged, and this is to investors, by the way, not like a big PR spin event, he said that Veilguard engaged 1.5 million players, less than 50% of expectation. But now you've got Ubisoft out here going, oh yeah, 2 million players, a game's big success, right? That's interesting. So you're telling me that there's that many console players that are out there? Or everybody's signing up for your subscription service, so you're getting pennies on the dollar for a game that needs to be an overwhelming success, and it's just a middling success. Nevertheless, yes, Ubisoft is presenting a front. The game's release has been a success. The company shared on Saturday that the game reached 2 million players. Whatever the hell that means. But hey, you know, at least they're not antagonistic towards their audience. Okay, that's definitely change of pace for them. But yeah, we'll get into what Tom Henderson had to say tomorrow and make the comparisons right there. But as it sits, Assassin's Creed Shadows is not a hit. It is a catastrophic failure that I'm frankly blown away by. Like I was saying, I was trying to hedge my bets there right towards the end by saying 80, 90, I think upwards of 120,000, because I legitimately did not think that this game would do 20,000 players better when it was in full release. That was shocking. That was fully and totally shocking. But then again, I didn't anticipate the game being as bad as it was. Like, I thought it would be mid at best, and people saying that, oh, it's like a 6 or a 7. And it's like, you should pay attention to how bad that game really is. Like, a 4 would be generous and far more accurate. And the fact is, once this game really does fall off, and it's not going to take that long, okay? Because at least the Veilguard people were, for whatever reason, playing that game for a little while longer, and it took a minute for that game, and we're going to be talking about that, I think, towards the end of the weekend, because it's very interesting as well, because something did happen with the Veilguard recently that just proved that game is stone cold dead. And it's going to be a similar fate for Assassin's Creed, because we already know something that's on the horizon for that one. But after people have had their fill over this weekend, I don't anticipate these numbers rebounding all that much throughout the week. Maybe next weekend it peaks a little bit, but it's not going to get close to that 64,000. And then when ultimately they have to do their quarterly sales calls, when we get the actual numbers, or at least a closer approximation to how many players were out there, you just keep in the back of your mind, they announced 2 million players right there in the first couple of days over the launch weekend. How does that end up shaking out? How many people are they engaging, and how many sales did that game ultimately make? And when we do get that sales call, who's going to be making that? Is it going to be Ubisoft, or is it going to be Tencent? There's still a lot to talk about Shadows, and we'll be doing that again tomorrow. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.